Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like Somee.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices. bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees. Better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org, your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like Somee.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices. bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees. Better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out. Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about Bitcoin and Bitcoin accessories. And today I'm with my bro, Jeff Hancock of CoinPass.com. And we're going to be talking about crypto exchanges today. Jeff, how goes it?
Real good, Ken. Thanks for having us on the show, man.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on, man. It sounds like you're doing big things over there in the UK.
We're trying, yeah, every single day. We work on the exchange, we work with our community, always doing live events, and always trying to take the friction out of the market and do good stuff.
Well, let's get into Jeff, you, before we get into CoinPass. I always get, my guests to kind of tell my audience and myself a little bit about like who you were before you got into crypto and maybe how that led you down your rabbit hole, and then like we'll dig into what you're doing now in the industry.
Yeah, sure. So my background is actually in engineering. I've always been a tech guy for about 15 years in the tech space, and I used to work in hotels and casinos. So I've always been into kind of gambling and kind of gaming. I'm a craps player or a poker player. And then moved to the UK with my now CTO Paul, and we originally came over to do a long distance charity rally, and we drove a tiny little car from London all the way to Mongolia in 4 weeks for charity, and then came back to the UK and kept doing the old jobs, working in data centers and worked up to financial firms and hedge funds. And then one day a couple of guys came to me saying, we've been doing this Bitcoin thing for a while, can you tell us about it? I was always investing in different stuff and contracting and trying to make an empire for myself. And when they came to me and they said, how do you buy Bitcoin in the UK?
Right.
And at that point in time, it was like late 2016, maybe early 2017, and everything was US dollars and euro, unless you were going down to the Starbucks using local Bitcoins, which is still quite rare. A lot of it was still euro based. And there was just no entry point that was super reliable with really good service. So we kind of banded together and we put some capital in and we came up with a brand and we just launched something. Let's launch it for one client and see if we can make something out of it. And a few months later, I'd quit my job for one of the biggest tech funds in the world, and based in Mayfair. I was kind of living the life of the IT contractor, and then the rest is history. We've been going for we've kind of nearly coming up on our second year, which is awesome. And every day we grind and look for new things and work with our community and constantly strive to take more friction out of the market and more friction out of our product to get pound sterling and euro in and out of the crypto market.
What is the friction like still at this point right now in the UK for off and on ramps for
Yeah,
Bitcoin?
it's it's definitely not the tech. It's definitely banking. It's the old world banking. Now, because of our, I suppose, our team and our the prestige of which that we bring to it, we're aiming for a premium service product. We're not trying to do anything the cheapest. We're by far not the most expensive either. But I mean, if we can get as a small team, a small company, from the money hitting our bank account to crediting your account so you can trade, we do that in under 30 seconds. Which, for some of the big boys that we're competing with, um, if we can do it, they should be able to do it as well. So we still have a quite strict compliance process. We do KYC on our clients. All the funds are completely what we call segregated, so nothing mixes together. And I think because of we're tech guys first and not business guys second. But I mean, we built the platform from the ground up, and the framework from the ground up using our skill sets. And because of that, what's that buzzing me in the background? I should have turned all this off before we started our stream.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
man.
the beauty of
Yeah.
doing it live. I was curious, is
The
CoinPass a custodial exchange or?
at the moment it is, yeah. I mean, that's kind of one of the other rubs of it is that in crypto, people want to be self-sovereign, and you want to be control of your own funds. And we don't have any handcuffs for people that want to, if you want to buy £50 or £5,000, you want to withdraw it straight away. We have that facility in place for that very reason. But I mean, right now, the size of the crypto market, there's 45, 48 million people in the world, about 0.5%. And a lot of those people that are still brand new to this, some of them aren't really ready to be their own bank. Some people need a little bit of a holding hand and need that kind of security, and that when they log onto an exchange, their coins are always going to be there. So we are a custodial exchange right now. All of the coins are 100% cold storage. We only operate a hot wallet in a platform called BitGo, which you might be
Yeah, I
aware
was
of.
just gonna ask if you were insured with BitGo.
Yeah, so our hot wallets exist in BitGo. Only a very little bit of our liquidity sits there, and they're swept kind of 3, 4 times a day as part of our standard security policy.
Now, coming from an engineer's perspective who's running an exchange, I'm just curious what your thoughts are when exchanges like Quadriga or other exchanges around the world, have these incidents where people lose funds, whether it be an exit, a scam, a hack, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. What is CoinPass doing to ensure or kind of assure that wouldn't happen to them? Your
I
users.
think I think it comes down to this word that's thrown around quite a lot. Sometimes a bit too much is the word transparency. And I think you need to be able to find, where that company is based, who it's being run by, and kind of what are their backgrounds. If you go to LinkedIn and go look up a business in the UK, you can see who the directors are, and you can
Right.
you can go and do your due diligence on some of these other companies that are based in the Seychelles or even in Canada or other Singapore or other places. If you don't know who these people are, or if it's just owned by a holding company that's owned by another holding company, there's so much, obscurity that you don't really know who's in control of your funds. And I think if you do even just a quick 5 minutes on any business and see who's actually running it, seeing who's doing the compliance, you can make quite a good judgment call. So, like one of our co-founders, for instance, he's been regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority here in the UK for over 20 years. He's worked in financial services and regulatory and compliance. And if you look up, he's involved with our brand as a co-founder. That's a big deal.
Right.
You're going to find the kind of people that you surround yourself with help builds that kind of prestigious and premium brand, and that's what we're really really proud of.
What's interesting is like one of the most useful ways of kind of on ramping people into crypto is the fiat off and on ramp of a debit or credit card. I was just
Yeah.
curious, are you looking into having a debit or credit card for CoinPass, or like how's the process of like even doing that if you looked into it?
Well, there's this is really interesting when you get down into these kind of layers and you really know how it all works. It gets very, very interesting. We are going to add a debit card facility very soon. That is something in our future. We wanted to do the banking side first because it was relatively untouched. There were a few providers in the UK that we could work with, and they've been very, very helpful. The debit card part, while it's super convenient, it opens up certain platforms to different levels of risk.
Oh,
So
interesting.
with a debit card, for instance, right, you can go and purchase something, call up your bank and say, I didn't purchase that. And you can get a refund. And it's like if you're a vendor, like a Shopify store or something online, you can be exposed to that kind of 30, 50, $100 risk per transaction for
Right.
something like 30 or 60 days. That's kind of the normal process. But with crypto, you do a transaction or something like that, and you take that Ethereum, take that Bitcoin, there is zero way to recover that. There's no way to take funds back off someone. That's the whole beauty of it, right? And for the very early days, using some card processors, people were running up a $20,000-$30,000 Mastercard bill, calling up their bank and saying my card was stolen last month. Someone's been
Right.
buying Ethereum with it, and now that exchange is now screwed.
It's funny
Now
you
there
bring
have
that
been
up now because the Christmas holiday. I wonder how
oh
many
wow,
people are doing
yeah.
this to small businesses, and how many people are getting free Christmases, so to speak.
Something like that, yeah. So there are providers out there now that will class an exchange as like either a medium or a high risk, depending on the size of the transaction, the KYC you do, other checks, etc. And I think the tech has definitely caught up massively over the last 2 years to protect consumers and also businesses from that sort of level of fraud. So it is getting better. And on the flip side of that, now you'd look at something like Simplex, for instance, right? Simplex is plugged into
Yes.
nearly all the exchanges, and when you plug into Simplex, like say if we plug Simplex in our exchange, and you do that purchase, is that you're actually purchasing the Ethereum or the Bitcoin or whatever from like Simplex's pool and then delivering it to the exchange. That's why there's about a 30-minute to a 1 hour transaction time. And they can kind of keep all of that compliance and checking and security inside their ecosystem. And as soon as all the boxes are checked and it passes through, they're the ones kind of doing the protection. So
Right.
while the debit card thing is super cool and super convenient, there's a reason why it's a 4 to 5% kind of premium you pay on top of that because of that layer of risk and protection that companies have to take.
Sounds like the legacy issues are still what's holding back. The ramps of
Thank you, bro.
cross bridging. It's not the crypto side of this island that's the issue. It's
Yeah,
the and that's it's
it's
what's
it's
holding
it's
back. I
the it's
think a
the
lot of people. Well, I mean, like I'm
the
saying,
connection
if
to the old world, right?
right, if people could, I think accept Bitcoin and do more things that were more convenient, like swipe a card to spend it, there wouldn't be such a need to convert it into U.S. dollar to hold and then spend.
Yeah,
I personally hold crypto to the very last second and then spend it. I broke down and finally got a BitPay card again because it's just yeah, it's expensive with their fees, but it's just I'm all in on crypto, so I needed a convenient way to
yeah,
start using my paying for things
yeah.
again.
So we have a kind of a split. There might be like Bitcoin for hodling, and then on my mobile wallet we'll have a bit of Bitcoin Cash and some Nano and some Ethereum. And when the bunch of us are at a bar together or out having a lunch, and we want to settle up between each other, we will use some sort of crypto. So we're kind of using it as that internal ecosystem because if you think about it, right, what's stopping a business from taking crypto as a payment is because they can't pay their rent and their
Right,
staff and their internet bill with crypto just yet. And then you've got volatility and etc., where stable coins will have their place in the ecosystem in the future.
right,
But as soon as you get that supply line of more businesses that will support crypto transactions, and the point of sale terminal now turns into a QR code and a wallet, that's where the real kind of adoption forward I think is going to go. But I think for that to happen, you have to be able to start paying basic utilities and people's, doing your tax returns, all that kind of stuff has to kind of catch up. It's all the old world that has to catch up to the new world.
you're painting a picture where your fiat often on ramps are obsolete, and that's what I look most forward to.
Yeah, we're building a business to put ourselves out of business, where we have to
Yes,
evolve as we
respect.
go.
Exactly. You have to keep
Yeah,
evolving as you go because that's what a
I
great
agree.
business does, right? A great
Yeah,
business puts itself in a position where if it does its job correctly, it's no
yeah.
longer necessary, so it must evolve to keep sustaining its utility.
Yeah, and that's something we've strived to do over our kind of short time in the market. 2 years feels like an absolute huge amount of time from when our first development went out to the current product we have now. And we've tried to keep it as I've listened to a really really good podcast with I think they call it Invest Like a Billionaire, and one of the guys on there, he was relating some of his investing to kind of cooking, and I love cooking as well. So I was switched on and very listening. But I like complex ingredients delivered simply. And
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of what crypto is, right? It's a very, very complex set of code and algorithm and blockchain, etc. So I'm not a developer. I've always been an infrastructure guy and a hardware guy. So when it gets into the code, it looks like the matrix to me. But the simplicity of it is that, we can transact now over this podcast. I could show my QR code up on the
Right.
screen, and we could transact without the need of a routing number. And you're in the US and I'm in the UK
Right.
and I've got an account in Australia, and all of that gets destroyed and taken down to its bare minimum layer of there's point to point on the internet, and we can communicate and we can transfer value over that communication,
What a lot of
and that's
people
cool.
won't realize is that QR code that makes sending Bitcoin so convenient wasn't always a
No, it was an
tool that
innovation.
Bitcoin had. Exactly. It was innovated
Yeah,
for the use of convenience. It was,
yeah.
you had to basically be one of the matrix fucking coders to get away with sending a
Well,
Bitcoin transaction without messing it up.
yeah, and that's kind of what my first ever personal experience of when I was an engineer, and it was about 2012, mid 2012, I think it was. We had not a client at the time, but someone when I was still an engineer and doing data center stuff. They came to us and said, like, look, we've been hacked. We have no backups. We legally have to have this data recovered. We've been ransom attacked. We just
Right.
want to pay the fine. Can you help us do that? And we're like, okay. And they go, we got this email about Bitcoin. Do you know anything about it? And me and one other guy got basically put on this project to pay a ransom for a client. And back then it was like you had to send some money to Estonia, and they sent you, what we thought was some numbers on a screen. So we set up a VM in our data center. We put a wallet on it. You had to sync the entire Bitcoin chain down to that wallet as well. There was no, like mobile wallets and stuff back then. And then one day, 5,000 coins appeared on the screen. I'm like, okay, I think is this what we're supposed to be doing now? And we have to send it somewhere to this big long address, and we pasted it, and most of the coins went away. And somewhere between us getting the money and sending it to the hacker and etc., the exchange rate moved. So we had about 75 coins left over.
Ooh.
And then in 2016, we're like, what happened to that virtual machine back in 2012 with those 75 bitcoins on it? Gone. into
Oh.
into obscurity, out of the backup queue, gone. And that was kind of that time when I was, still, getting into my stride of, not just being an employee, but building a portfolio of, should I investigate this Bitcoin thing more with my friends that were like, no, I'm not interested in that. Let's go do something else.
That's a really
Um,
interesting way to get on ramped in is through
yeah,
like the aid of a ransomware issue, and I mentioned this is actually was a side effect of the ransomware epidemic. There was a
yeah,
long period of this where even government and like militaries and hospital, like everybody would seem to be affected by this, but the
yeah.
problem was it was a
Schools and
legit.
universities and
Right.
libraries and stuff. Yeah,
But the real issue behind it was legit. If you paid the ransom, you got your files decrypted. It was no longer
mm.
encrypted, and
Yes,
you
yeah.
had
It's just to
your
finish that
computer
story.
back.
We did get the decryption
Oh,
key,
always. That's
and we
the part of it. Yeah.
yeah, and we saved their bacon. So they were quite a good client for us after that, because like, cool. So let's talk about your backup solution. Let's talk about where your data's hosted. Let's talk about your security. Let's talk about all this other stuff that we can now
I
upsell.
read an interesting article around that period where maybe around the beginning of 2018. No, that was almost the beginning of 2019. I'm sorry, because this was about a year ago. There was, I think, like 3 out of 10 or something like that. Companies in the UK were buying Bitcoin as a hedge for cybersecurity, like in case of
Mm,
ransomware break glass, and there was crypto in there just in case. And I was wondering, like, yo, there has to be like yourself, so many people getting into this because of this, outside of the actual mainstream media's perpetuation of it.
mm.
There's industry leaders that are seeing this as a hedge for cybersecurity, not so much as an investment or a speculative or whatever. They're holding it for that reason alone, and that's getting a
Yeah,
lot of companies and businesses having it as a hodl.
yeah. I think there's a little bit of that. Probably not. I mean, I might write that down. Actually, that's a good new business development strategy. Target businesses for hedging. Um, but I think how the cybersecurity space has developed as well. There's more. and this was one of the last roles I did before I came full time into crypto, was there's more prevention on malicious or non-malicious, what they call data leakage. So they're more worried about data leaving a network than an intruder coming inwards.
Mm.
But I think, yeah, I think everyone's at least talking about it now. It's part of the normal vernacular of, what is it for? It's used as a, some sort of means of digital gold, or it's used as part of an investment portfolio. And a lot of people in London specifically maybe have heard of it and are buying it simply as a little bit of exposure. I put $100 in, now it's worth 105. Okay, fine, that's 5%. That's a good return. Um, but as for hodling it for a payment or ransom bit, I haven't seen those kind of attacks being as prevalent as previous, but they're probably still out there. Definitely, you get those spam emails every now and then. We've been
Yeah.
watching you and your webcam. Send us
Well, you gotta
five
wait for the
Bitcoin
bull
or else.
runs for because
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
ransomware to implement it to infect the network, it's time consuming and it's
yeah.
proof of work in their own nature, and it's not going to be done until it's worthwhile, or it's already been done and they're not going to execute the ransomware encryption mechanism until it's worth the time to cash in.
Mm.
Because
Yeah,
a lot
because
of the
while it's
times
low,
you're
you're like,
yeah.
well, I'll do it now. It's only a couple of $1,000s a coin rather than being $20,000 a coin. Now it's a big issue.
Right, exactly, exactly. And I think that's what, and a lot of people don't realize their networks are infected for months before they actually get
Oh yeah,
notified by this, and they're being, you know, data mined, logged, key logged, and everything for days or weeks. And eventually, you get notified and you're like, wow, I wonder how long they've been doing this.
yeah, very crazy.
So I wanted to get into like coin listings and things because like what's one of the things that interests me the most in the space is exchanges and coin listings, and it seems like to me, and I don't mean this in any personal way, it's such an unethical like business model for like exchanges and coin listings to but it's necessary, it's sustainable, I get it, it's totally business, but how is that business for CoinPass? How does a coin get listed on the exchange? What's the thought process? Do you have like Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV? Do you have Litecoin? I'm just curious because here
Yeah.
in the U.S. I don't really have access to it.
So we've been a little bit fortunate in that we haven't kind of, I suppose, exposed ourselves to that kind of part of the market because of what we were focusing on. We didn't want to be like every other single exchange because then you're competing with every single other exchange. So with the banking and there's no regulation in the UK right now for exactly what we do. The FCA has developed their narrative around what's a decentralized token, what's a utility, what's an STO, etc. Whereas 2 years ago it was Bitcoin is crypto, crypto is Bitcoin. So it's actually good that they've got some good guys on board there that are updating and informing. But because we only do Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, XRP, and Ethereum, those are all classed as either exchange tokens or utility tokens, which is great because they fall outside any of the directives of any of the regulators. So when it comes to listings, we have to be very careful of, is it completely a decentralized token? If you're doing an ICO token, you can be mined, it can be proof of stake, it doesn't matter. It's still being issued by one person.
Mm-hmm.
Now with Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically, is that those networks are so large now that there's not one controlling party. It depends how much you want to go down the whole
Right.
Bitcoin mining centralization route or not. But you're not the issuing company where they can just dump their bag straight away. And because we're connecting it to banking, into pound sterling, there has to be someone on the other side of the trade at all times. So, if it was an ICO token straight away and they wanted to list it for £1 or for £2, and someone wants to sell it, then where do those pounds come from? They can't come out of thin air. This is the Quadriga CX problem, right?
Yep.
Where you're just putting numbers on the screen on a database and they're not backed by anything.
Yep.
So because we've taken the angle of, we want to get rid of the friction in the market, we want to be a premium service, we've only listed tokens that have huge amounts of liquidity. So those top five that we mentioned, where we have our own treasury, where CoinPass holds our own company funds, but also we can work with other counterparties that want to, get capital in and out of the market. So we deal with retail and business, quite a lot of business customers in London as well. to use our services because you can't put 10, 20, 30,000 pounds a day through Coinbase and some of the other guys because they have limits, and if you're not doing
Yeah.
over $1 million of volume, then it's kind of too bad. But with the regulators in the UK, with our banking partners, with the compliance that we do, with the way we've set up our business, we've been able to kind of take out those friction barriers quite easily.
That's interesting, man. See,
Yeah. So
it seems like
I
the rest of the world has a lot more opportunity going for it than the U.S. when
yeah,
it comes to this.
yeah, but I think when you get to the listing part of it, it really depends on what your business model is. There is, a whole other world out there of, uh, market making for a token to give it liquidity on an exchange.
Right.
You have to pay some huge fees, sometimes like 1 to 5 Bitcoin a month, a month to make sure your token has liquidity on say Binance and Huobi and Bittrex and all the other ones,
Mm-hmm.
and there'll be companies specializing in doing market making. Then you got your listing fees because they've got to do the tech, they've got to do security, you've got to get tokens in there. There's sometimes 5 or 10% of your total circulation as a fee. It's big business, and if uh, you don't have the trading flow to kind of support that token, they can get delisted, they can get bad press. It's kind of this whole living organism that has to be kind of propped up if there's not enough action there. It's kind of like if for a startup or a business that doesn't have any revenue yet, you have to have a huge amount of investors as a burn rate for the
Mm-hmm.
first 2 years until it actually goes and does something. So and that's where I think we've seen a lot of the negativity in the market being highlighted, because these projects that haven't built anything or haven't delivered anything, but still are doing 3, 4, 5 million a day in volume on a token that's never ever going to survive. That's kind of the negative part of the market, unfortunately.
Exactly. Well, I think recently it's being highlighted more so as the with fake volume. You know how like there's fake news, but we do
Yeah,
have a lot of fake volume, and maybe you have
yeah.
some insight from the exchange perspective on how exchanges get away with perpetuating fake volume and helping basically these coins that pay exorbitant amounts of fees to get this artificial volume, so people get interested in this pump and dump.
Yeah, well, I think that's a multi-headed Hydra question, which is really interesting. I mean, you've got, spurious exchanges that will run a few bots themselves. And if when you're talking about trading, you've got bid and ask, you've got the depth of the order book, and they'll keep populating orders that don't cross the line. And as soon as a genuine order does cross the line, that can inflate their volume numbers very significantly. Now, on the other side of that, you could have people that are not affiliated with the exchange whatsoever, but run bots in the background because of affiliates, because of whatever, and they get really low transaction fees, and they'll just have two bots that fight each other all the time to generate volume and try and snipe trades or run an algorithm or whatever. And it really depends on is the exchange faking the volume, or are the people on the exchange faking the volume
Right.
for their own ends. And that's where I think not every exchange is built similarly and built the same. For ones that are faking volume purely to attract customers, the volume's kind of appearing on certain websites, say like your Coin Market Caps or your Coin Geckos or whatever, and they're not doing enough on their side to detect the fake volume.
Right.
Because I mean, again, I'm not a software developer, but our CTO and our team is. The way that API traffic is built up, or the way that the trades are interpreted, if the sites that are showing the information aren't doing their job by showing what fake volume is and detecting it, there's always going to be another developer that's smarter than the person who built the algo or the person that built the security, to then fool it to say, no, this is real volume, this is what we're doing. There's a good friend of mine, a great friend of mine here in London named On Yavin, and he runs Cointelligence. Big shout out to On, and they're all about pushing out scams and
That
exchanges
sounds
that
my
have good.
people.
Yeah, it's one of your people, right? I'll send him a link, get him in your show, and uh, some of the data that they drive from the exchanges, their features, their security, the owners, who's running it, their volume, all of that kind of stuff, is a really good repository. And he's got some very strong opinions on certain sites and certain exchanges, and how this data is kind of put out there to the general public. That is definitely not helping mass adoption. It's definitely hindering it when it comes to fake volume and wash trading.
Yeah, you're right. That's well said. It's definitely hindering it, and I think it's holding back a lot of the more traditional institutional money that sitting on
Mm,
the sidelines still,
yeah,
waiting for us to figure out our shit. So
yeah.
the waters are safe for them to swim in because
Mm.
risk reward isn't really worthwhile when you're looking at the stock market versus the cryptocurrency market. For those that are already comfortable, I mean, in the stock market.
Yeah, and I think that's a really really good point actually, the risk to reward ratio. Because when you say institutional money, I mean the word institutional is thrown around like like Barclays and J.P. Morgan, but institutional can mean the little prop trading fund that has 10 million under management
Yep.
and they trade forex and a little bit of equities on the side. And some of those shops, I mean not specifically London but all over, they're starting to almost diverse a little bit and use proper custodians and use API integrations and etc. And they're plugging in crypto exchanges into their
Yeah.
Bloomberg existing algo, and they're kind of siphoning off a 500,000 or 1 million or 3 million over here to trade crypto. And they probably find the volatility great for risk reward because they go, well, if I want to get a 3x return or a 3 risk to reward ratio, then with volatility kicked in, they can kind of pick the easier fights, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And they can, they've got more patience. They've got investors and shareholders to report to, and so they're only going to make trades that are really really well set up and that are always going to win. And because they've got more liquidity than the average trader, it's kind of becomes a David and Goliath bit where the professional guys usually know what's happening, or they're the ones that can move the market in their favor as well. I've seen firsthand someone just buying a bunch of Neogas crash the market on Binance with like a £5,000 trade,
Yeah.
because some of the order books are so thin that they see an opportunity where they can wipe out a hell of a lot of the order book just by themselves. And that's where I think at the moment there is more professional money and more institutional money, even on the smaller end of the scale, than a lot of people realize in the market right now.
And you mentioned transparency earlier, and
Mm.
Anthony, shout out to Anthony in the chat. He mentioned happy proof of keys day,
Yeah.
and I wanted to see what your thoughts are from an exchange perspective again, like on the concept of proof of keys, where where people take all their assets off of your exchange for the day, and make sure they have their assets. And I'm just and exchanges proving with transparency that they do have the amount of crypto that are being shown. Like, I always wonder how many people on Coinbase are being told they own the same Bitcoin in the background with the paper
Yeah,
fractional reserve
that's
Bitcoin.
well, yeah. I mean, it comes back to the hot topic where Quadriga, right? I mean, they had like it was what 170 million short or something like that we know of.
Yeah, it was like a Mount Gox
Yeah,
2.0.
yeah, 2.5. I mean, the whole concept of it is right now. I think it's fine. I know there's a really really strong base of people that were very early into crypto that it has to be on a paper wallet that's torn in half in two different safe deposit boxes on the other side of the country. You got the people that have a ledger that is what I'm setting up for a friend of mine right now. um, and and I get that, and it's completely fine, and I think it does prove solvency. And then on the other side of that, people then complain about withdrawal fees and that
Yup.
every now and then I don't know why it happens, but the Bitcoin mempool gets completely jammed. And we're using standard practice batching and standard 1-2 block fees, and it takes 2 to 3 hours to deliver sometimes because there's a huge queue and there's people that are paying way more fees than us to do withdrawals. That's fine. And so it's out of your control. It's on the blockchain, right?
I like
So
that
there
you
are
mentioned
times
the
when these,
congestion, man. Like, because that's a lot
yeah,
of people don't realize that's what today is. Today is the day to go clog the highways with your cars and get into a traffic
yeah,
jam, and
yeah.
embrace the traffic jam with
Embrace the
pride.
traffic jam, yeah. But if you think of it from a business perspective, the more liquidity you can keep in your ecosystem, the better. For people to trade it, for withdrawing, for deposits, for general everything really. Liquidity is king. So when one of the proof of keys events come out, I think it's important to the right people that want to follow it. And then there are, the other half of the market, or I'd probably say the majority of the market right now, that are looking for a trustworthy place to trade, and they're looking for a trustworthy place to dollar cost average and
Mm-hmm.
to keep it secure and keep it on cold storage. And I think that comes down to what due diligence do you do on a company or a stock that you buy. What does the average investor do? Some people that put their money into their pension or their trading account. You can't take self sovereignty of a stock, unless you can't go to Apple and say, can I have $5 a stock, please? No, it sits in
Right.
your trading account on JP Schwab or in Hargreaves Lansdown here in the UK. And that's just the way that centralized banking and centralized trading systems have been for the last 50 years, because that's what creates all the liquidity. Decentralized exchanges are hugely secure, and you can self-sovereign all of your crypto, but the liquidity is just not there. You can't go on there at 3 in the morning and make a trade sometimes, because the order book is $15-20 wide, because there's no liquidity. So I think centralization, it's not the end of crypto, and it's not a what's the best word for this? It's not something that's going to destroy crypto. It's something
Right.
that's going to live side by side. And I think as long as people take a little bit of responsibility for their investment and actually educate themselves, even just a little bit, I think learning the skill set right now over the next 5 years is probably the most invaluable thing that people can do in this particular type of market, while the market's going sideways or doing a bit of a Bart Simpson and going up and down.
Yeah, right. Invest in knowledge
Is
right now. Go all in.
invest in knowledge. People that have a small portfolio, I would say you can risk 1% of your net worth. Because if you just work for a year, you can make that back. If it goes up by 2-3%, then it's great. If it goes from 1% down to zero, then big deal. It's 1%. It's not going to kill you. Going in the 5-10% of your portfolio region, that's bigger, because that could be the difference of 5 years or 5 or 10 years of
Well,
your
we're
of
getting
your
into
investment.
risk tolerance, and that's really a generational
Yeah,
percentage, right? The
I agree.
millennials
Yeah,
are going high risk, boomers are going low risk. And I
yeah,
think Acorns and Robinhood, and there was another app recently, they all kind of mentioned, that the younger users on their base are going high risk on a lot of their diversified portfolios when they're dollar cost averaging into
yeah.
these.
And you think about it with time, right? Like if I was doing any investing right now, at like anything under 25, I've technically had two careers, and what's today? The third? No, it's still the third. Yeah, tomorrow is my birthday, so tomorrow I turn
Oh,
35.
well, happy early birthday.
Thank you very much. But I mean, for anything, below 25, I was still bartendering up until I was about 20, 21. And then I worked in casinos, and then I moved to the UK. And, these kind of gaps in your, not gaps in your career, but the way that your career evolves and your investing evolves, over those kind of periods of your life, is that you can go hard early, and then once you've made a bit of money, then you can diverse it. Or if you put $1,000 in when you're 18, that might seem like all the money in the world.
Right.
But putting a
Yeah.
thousand pounds into something in your mid 30s, well, there's some more I'm going to do to that. But then what you're earning in your 18s to your 30s is completely different as well. So I think while it might seem super high risk, and they're going all in on Bitcoin and all in on crypto, um, stuff that you could have invested in 10 years ago might have been equally as risky. What was it? Carbon credits and palm oil and bonds and all other kinds of junk. They were up in the high risk category now, and now they're kind of just gone. So I think each generation there's going to be an opportunity, and I think people that are taking the educational route right now and learning about Bitcoin, about wallets, and about DeFi. I'm super excited
I
about
was
DeFi.
actually just gonna bring
Yeah.
that up, man. You like were reading my mind or something. I was wondering what your thoughts were on the potentials of DeFi and Dexes.
Yeah, well, I think the way that DeFi and DEXs can work together as an ecosystem is very, very cool. I think DeFi, the liquidity that DeFi can attract and how they interface with DEXs,
Right.
is very interesting, especially with ETH, MakerDAO, the whole kind of that kind of whole
Mm-hmm.
ecosystem is really, really cool. A good friend of mine that runs Plutus DeFi, PlutusDeFi.com, and they're basically building an aggregator that for an investor. There are a lot of different protocols out there, and if Bitcoin is kind of new cutting edge, and then Ethereum as like the computer of the world is kind of the next level, then DeFi is like the razor bleeding edge, really. where you can put in a stable token and get a few percent return. You can stake your ETH. You can open up debt positions. You can trade. It's almost like an unlimited kind of a boundaryless ecosystem, right? And I think with DeFi specifically, and I'm talking like on a financial services point of view, I think DeFi is probably blockchain's best chance to get the institutionals on board,
Yep.
because there's already, like what they say, like between 2 or 4% of the total ETH supply in DeFi right now, something like quite significant. And that liquidity that's then building out a stable token environment that people can then trade on, and still, it's a stable token that's backed by an asset, but then it's in a smart contract system that's completely transparent, unlike Tether. Then
Respect.
no, that's an interesting piece of tech that's been deployed. It's very well thought out. It's got the highest count of developers for any other blockchain. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. I'm happy to be wrong. But you've got Ethereum, MakerDAO, DAI. Now they've got all the new classifications of DAI. That whole concept is interesting to an institution, because now there's another liquidity pool that they can leverage to execute their financial services, their loans, their trading positions, margin. It's kind of unlimited, and I think DeFi and that kind of ecosystem is the best bet for financials and for those big institutions to actually see blockchain for what it is, as a tool, and not as going to the moon with Bitcoin. You know what I mean? I think it's a very professional way to get them on board.
Yeah, and this is more of what you were mentioning earlier is those layers of utility or ease of use or features that are needed. This is one more way that when we say be your own bank, it's not just hodling your private keys under your mattress.
No.
You have to be able to take your Bitcoin, loan it out, earn interest, take a loan out on your collateral Bitcoin, and use it and do things with it that banks would do with money. And what DeFi indexes offer the individual with what crypto is, what Bitcoin is, and blockchain is the ability to now actually be your own bank and be your own exchange.
Mm. I think you kind of nailed it on the head there, is that there's going to be a more emphasis on, I think, financial education. It has to be. I mean, it's not something that's taught enough in schools. You don't get told how to balance a checkbook or how to do a tax return. You get told to leave it to someone else. And
Yeah,
that's
wait
something
for
we really need to do.
Binance High School and Binance colleges, because that's what's
Yeah,
going to
I
happen.
mean,
CZ will
and that's
open a
yeah, I
college
mean,
university. Like, that's how Harvard started. It's a bunch of business dudes that were like, we want to teach business to dudes. Now we
well,
got blockchain dudes that want to teach blockchain to dudes,
Exactly. We want to do that with our own CoinPass brand as well. Now that we're trying to we did the friction bit, we did the banking bit really, really well, and now we're building that out to have more products. We're working with WeWork Blockchain Labs here in London. So we got CoinPass startups. So if you're a startup in the blockchain space and need a bit of help with getting liquidity into your app, or doing banking stuff, or any stuff with debit cards, or hosting, etc., and that's going to be kind of one of our sub brands. We want to get and partner with people in the education space as well. So it's going to be our CoinPass Academy. Not so much into, I suppose, we're going to produce our own content, as everyone should. I think content creation is super important in any industry. But also kind of getting what we find is super important to the space, from an education point of view and a markets point of view, and doing
Right.
a new service. So we're definitely going to start branching out a little bit more than just being an on-ramp exchange, and for trading, is that we want to bring businesses that aren't in the crypto ecosystem, and give them a good premium service, legitimate business that has a bigger interest than just selling as much Bitcoin as possible to as many people as possible. The business model is building an ecosystem of businesses around us, so we can get them involved, so they can win and we can win as well.
I had an interesting guest on yesterday, Annalise Sam from Give Nation, and we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about she was making a stable coin to basically build an educational program
Cool.
around crypto and blockchain and stuff. And yeah, like, you're basically resonating with a lot of what my previous guest was saying. And mentioned something earlier I wanted to mention. I wrote a note here. I wanted to make sure I mentioned it. Was when we were talking about the ransomware that you were dealing with, there's a company called CoinFirm, and they could actually potentially help collect the crypto that companies paid ransomware, because it's basically stolen Bitcoin, right? So if that Bitcoin hits an exchange that's cooperating with them,
Yeah.
you could actually get your Bitcoin back from the hacker. So just like two
Yeah, so
random
then
notes I put down.
and this is what we talked about the tech catching up, right? Like 2 years ago, none of that stuff was there. Your chain analysis, your coin firm, all that kind of what they call know your transaction technology. And as soon as there's a massive exchange hack now, you've almost got this, an unseen army that are there watching wallets, and there's
Yep.
algorithms to watch it all. You've got not whale watcher, whale alerts on
Yep.
Twitter. I love that. I leave that running on the screen some days when I'm just kind of chilling, and you see like a million a tether, 2 million here, 5 million. It's just kind of crazy that we're in this age that even though a lot of it's obfuscated, you can still see the transfer of money and the transfer of wealth moving between these different blockchains, which I think is important for us to move forward as an ecosystem.
Right.
Move forward as an industry, and that people will see that, oh well, we wanted to build this kind of business 20 years ago, but we couldn't do it, and now we can. You know what I mean? It's like with George Lucas and his Star Wars films. He started with these ones because those are the ones he could do at the time.
And then he went back and edited them and put weird random shit in it. Bro, I was watching fucking Star Wars the other day and there was some weird CGI stripper singing a song and she was an alien stripper and that wasn't there when I saw it as a kid is what I'm getting
I don't remember the alien stripper.
Bro,
I'll go back after watch.
Edited them, bro. I'm telling you, it ruined my brain watching the edited Star Wars scenes and I'm just like, I felt like I was in a weird what do they call that when you have the effect? Crap.
Deja vu.
No. The other one. That's something when the universe is split. Crap. No, the Mandela effect.
Alternate reality or something.
Yeah. I thought I had like a weird Mandela effect going on because of that, But I did want to talk about, what we were mentioning before I kind of digressed was what we should see is more, know your exchange, right? So like when an exchange asks me for know your customer, why doesn't an exchange have to submit know your exchange information to me? You want to know all this information about me. What information are you giving me back? Where's the know your exchange for the KYC in return? Where's the give and take?
That's a really good one, and I suppose how does that information, does that go back to some central repository or back to a DAO or back to something running on Ethereum? That's a really, really interesting part of me. It's a really interesting concept.
What information would it be even? That's what I was, picking your
brain.
Well,
yeah, what would the information be? Yeah, what could you share? I think the things that would be important to me as an investor, or me as a trader, where's the jurisdiction? Where are they based? So if they're in like the Seychelles or China or Hong Kong, you basically got no way to find out anything or get anything to do with your funds back. If they're in a country that has a strong financial regulatory regime, or your passport in another country, especially Europe, I think those are particularly good. You don't necessarily need to know all the shareholders of the company, but who's the CEO and who's the COO and who's the compliance officer and stuff like that. And if they don't have even a compliance officer or a financial officer, that's seriously risky stuff right there. You're dealing with numbers in banking, and you need someone professional at the helm. Or is it just someone that's thrown up a website from a white label yesterday?
Well, wouldn't that be what a DEX and a DeFi
well, a DEX and a DeFi
would be? Is sort of like that unbodied entity.
It's true. It's an unbodied entity, but especially on the DEX, I mean, those are launched on a smart contract that everyone can read, and that everyone can talk about it and investigate.
But smart contracts are created by somebody or somebody.
Created by somebody, but then because of their transparent nature, it's submitted out there on the Ethereum chain or on whatever.
Smart contract transparency has improved to legitimacy though when we've even looked back at the DAO. The first smart contract, the DAO had an exploit in it that nobody saw, even though it was transparent and open source. But somebody found it, they exploited it and took advantage. This could happen with DeFis and DEXs as well. There's smart contracts. There could be some exploit written into it so cleverly that even though it's open source, nobody catches it.
Yeah, no, that's very true. But now we're talking about the, the programming language and the validity of either a known malicious vulnerability or an unknown vulnerability,
Right, exactly. Intentional or
not based
unintentional,
on,
right?
yeah. But if you're talking about, we're talking about know your exchange kind of stuff. Dexes are kind of, they're completely exposed to that kind of fact. If they have a known vulnerability or something that can't be fixed, or has a conflict of interest there, people just won't use it, and there's no liquidity.
Good point.
So.
Well, what I was getting at
Uh,
is like who wrote the Dex's smart contract? Who were the
yeah,
developers? Who were the
exactly.
auditors? Who have proved all of that should be part of like the know your exchange information when it
Yeah,
comes
it's
to
a
the
really, really good
Dexes and
point.
DeFi's.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really, really good point. But then you then kind of tread on the toes of with DeFi in particular of being completely anonymous
Right.
and lending out your ETH to whoever you want anywhere in the world, and having a truly open,
Well,
stateless banking.
synonymous and anonymous are two different things. I feel like a
Mm,
lot of what we're building now is digital clout, digital reputation. And I
yeah,
say this kiddingly a lot, but I seriously do mean it. Like, fuck your FICO score. Your credit score might as well be your library card debt. How much money do you owe the library? You don't care, do you? I'm sure you do. Everybody owes the library money, bro. But
yeah,
nobody cares. The same thing happening soon with the credit card FICO score. It's going to be more of a digital clout based credit system where you could have a dog as your profile picture, and because your reputation as this a synonymous username, that is enough to submit. So if you have a reputable developer who's been coding for Bitcoin Core for the 11 years and he comes up and starts working on an exchange, I don't need to know your real name. I just need to know that that's actually the synonymous developer who's been
yeah,
contributing for all these years.
yeah. Very true. And it's just making sure that legitimate, internet-based ID can't be taken over by someone, and you just start getting into, you know,
Silk
what
Road
is
issues,
digital
right?
yeah, what was it's brand new first world digital issues. How do you prove exactly who you are that can't be faked? And that's where blockchain rules.
I can't wait for a lot of like you call them issues, and I'm just future solutions. Like there's so
Future
many things
solutions, so that's a
that
bit
are gonna come out of this.
that's a much better way to put it. Yeah, future
Well, the,
solutions,
the
future
problem's already
opportunities.
here, right? Like they already exist. The difference is we now
True.
have technology to implement in ways that could be solutions, not just carry problems over into a new era of technology and economics, but to utilize the tech to solve those problems because they already exist. They're going to exist in this, on ramping in as the mass adoption starts. We start to see a lot of custodial things and a tether and stuff like that. But we're starting to see things more like DAI and DEXs and
Mm.
DeFi's because I think utility and desire beget innovation. The more the opportunists will come, like the whole like if you build it, they will come. Well, there's a
Yeah,
thing right before
totally
that.
agree.
Is there an opportunity to build it? Do you have the land? Do you have the tools? People are just starting to get all these resources to start building the things that are
Mm.
going to bring people in and make them come.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that's where, I mean, it's a good staple on what the market is right now, where it could be. Because we're talking about custody quite a lot on this podcast, and self sovereignty and DeFi and being synonymous and anonymous. And where I think, and this is just a personal bit, where I think the market kind of could go, and this might be a 5 or 10 year thing, is I think we might actually see a natural split in the market between DEXs and centralized exchanges, and people that used regulated, insured custody, and etc. And I think both those ecosystems can exist and still communicate, if that makes
Absolutely,
sense.
yeah.
So you talk about a blockchain level, you talk about, database and protocols, they can communicate across any interface, which is, from a tech guy, that's amazing. We used to do integrations for, certain companies. You go, we want this other company to access our database. Well, okay, now you have to build a web front end, you have to do this, you have to have VPN. Like, oh no, we want to do it for like £1,000. Like, you can't do that. Whereas with blockchain, you can do all of that straight
Mm-hmm.
away. But for the institutions and for the businesses and for the people that don't want to manage a private key, they just want to be able to buy, sell, take it with me, send it to my grandma, etc.
The same way they use cash
That's
today.
same way you use cash today. I think the tech will be there, and the tech is transferable between both ecosystems, but one's going to be, custody, insured, centralized, big deal. And then you're going to have the anti-custodial, you're going to have the, what kind of what we have
Right.
now. And you're going to have your DEXs and your DeFi, and there's still going to be centralized exchanges that do crypto to crypto only, and etc. And I think both of those ecosystems can still live in harmony. I think they can still benefit massively from the resources that both teams bring to the party. And all that's going to do is bring on, more competition, more innovation. It's going to start edging banks to be completely zero fees, or to be more transparent, or to
Literally,
embrace this
yep.
technology. Literally, we've seen it recently with what is it, TD Ameritrade, and is
And
it Charles Schwab?
Western Union even
Yeah,
getting like pressured into the lower fees and stuff because of Bitcoin,
yeah,
dude. It's amazing.
down to zero fee trades on ETFs and stuff like that in the US. And that's competition, but it's also, 10 years ago, when they were trading on, big institute trading with each other, it was what they call T+5, which is your settlement time from trading a stock. It's like 5 days to do a clearinghouse and go through your broker, go through the prime, go to the exchange, etc. And that went from T+5 down to T+2, and everyone lost their freaking minds. They go, we have to do 5 days of work in 2 days now, and now that's being replaced by software and high frequency trading and APIs, and some of these technology stacks are coming out of people's bedrooms, you know, and you've
Right.
got these huge chunk of resources that aren't, they're not embracing this technology enough, fast enough, to then leverage it, to then do a new form of business, and that's where I think the next kind of, let's call it an arms race of tech and trade, will kind of come from, is who can settle the fastest over the most geographical distance and keep it, custodial and super legit and safe, and etc.
I'll
And
go
that's
one
really
step
exciting.
farther and tell you that I agree with you, and I say that they need each other. We need centralized services
That's me.
as
They
much
can
as we
they
need
could
the decentralized ones.
they
You
could
know,
both they could both live together.
yeah, it's the tribalism that's so thick in this industry, or this community, I should say. I gotta stop saying industry. We're not an industry yet. Stop getting excited, everybody. We'll get there one day. But the community is so tribal to push on the perpetuation that you have to be in possession of your keys, you have to be responsible, you have to know this and know that. That's like saying you have to be able to fix the alternator in your car if you're going to own a car. Like, that's an
Yeah,
unfair responsibility for
I,
utility of a technology.
yeah. As soon as I the tribal, you just, hit just on a, like a cool story there. It's like one of the reasons I came to the UK. I took a year off driving when I was in Australia, and that cost me quite a lot of my social life. Why, blah 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 blah. Why are you getting rid of the car? Sit up there, actually, the old street car, and that tribalism part of it, of like, why aren't you doing this anymore? You're no longer cool, is very, very rampant right now in crypto. It's, you either support Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin SV. There's nothing in between. You can't have an objective point of view across all three of them. Otherwise, you're just a leprechaun or something. I don't know. But I think that kind of needs to dissipate to bring more people in, because it's almost like a bit of a polarizing thing. Um,
Yep.
everyone has to
It's
agree.
a
Everyone has to
deterrent,
agree on
right?
everything. Yeah,
Like, there's
yeah, true.
people out there that want a bank account, that enjoy having an insured bank account, and you want to take that away from them so they could utilize your digital current. Like, that's not an
Mm.
incentive to the people that like, first world conversations aren't the same as third world conversations for Bitcoin. You have to know the audience when you're speaking to them about crypto. And a
Yeah,
lot of the people in America, UK, and other first world countries that talk about Bitcoin are like, burn the banks, man. We're gonna, own your own. And people were so bad at remembering passwords to their Facebook accounts, they have to reset them every other day. Could you
yeah,
imagine them having to be responsible for 6 figures of their life savings, or whatever, even if it's
yeah,
$10 in their name and that's all they
yeah,
have for the week? The level of responsibility is so high that they're never even going
yeah,
to take the opportunity to test out your new money system.
yeah. Because now, I mean, it's kind of where the internet was in 1994. I was very, very young in 1994, and someone's like, "Oh, the internet, you can send an electronic mail message to anyone, even if they're on the other side of the world." I'm like, "I don't know anyone on the other side of the world. I don't know anyone with I don't know anyone with an email address." And by,
Right, right.
1997, 1998, everyone had an email address, and now we've got, several email addresses, and they're throwaways. Use it once and get rid of it. And we've got the tech, and we're surpassing what we used to do.
Right.
And now it's very common for people that are in this industry and network to have multiple devices or multiple wallets or multiple exchanges to trade on. And we use, a Bitcoin deposit address for one transaction, then use another one. So,
Right. Multiple
you know,
emails, multiple addresses,
same
and
thing.
we're at the same era, like you mentioned. We're at that like AOL disk era, right, where everyone's still
Oh, the
using
CDs.
intranets. right?
AOL
But
CDs.
yes, but that's where we're at right now in crypto. Everybody's using intranets, right? Like that's how I feel like when people use Coinbase or CoinPass or whatever exchange rate may be, it's sort of an intranet version of what you could do if you wanted to use the internet of crypto, the decentralized version of it. But
Yeah.
you can opt to use the centralized, very comfortable on ramping educational. Like when people got internet, it was really AOL intranet. And I remember you couldn't send emails to certain other email addresses. They had to be an AOL
Really?
email address. I remember
Oh
having
wow, I don't remember
issues
that.
with
Yeah.
email addresses not working with other email addresses within the
Yeah.
intranet of AOL when it first started coming out.
Wow.
And I mean, like so we're at that stage where it seems like it's as great as it'll get, and it's going to take forever to get better. But with exponential growth and curve of the tech, what we've already seen, I mean, like 2015 when I first started, like, or 2016 when I first started getting into Bitcoin, it was still super inconvenient to get. And by the time it hit $20,000 at an all-time high, it was still super inconvenient to get. I don't know how people were putting enough money into it to buy that much to get it up to that price. So I mean, at the levels of ease of on ramp that we have now with exchanges like CoinPass in the UK, where there wasn't on ramps, I
Yeah.
imagine that we'll see a lot more of adoption happen. When it comes to even just people hodling it, and then the incentive to the merchants, and then the
Yeah.
incentives, farther and farther. Uh, I wonder, like, kind of to wrap things up here from an exchange perspective, engineer and all, where do you see I would say the nail on the head, the demo that we should be looking at to start the mass adoption, right? Is it a top down? Is it a bottom up? Is it the individuals? Is it the merchants? Is it the supply chains? Is it, where do we focus to really try to ramp up mass adoption? What's the most useful energy spent?
I think it definitely. I think for where the market is right now, I think yeah, the bigger business, the institutions, they will come when it's safe enough and when some of the volatility dies down. And maybe the volatility dying down is Bitcoin whales not having as much, control over the market. So I think it's definitely bottom up. I think it's going to take your average investor, or even your professional investor, putting the 0.5% or the 1% of their wealth in, or doing the best strategy. I feel, I'm not an investment advisor; it's educational only. Must remind is it just doing the dollar cost averaging, learning the skill set,
Yeah.
and having an interest in being a part of what I think
Does
from a
CoinPass
technology
have
standpoint.
a way for dollar cost averaging? Because a lot of exchanges
Uh,
don't actually have that an ability that
Q,
actually help
Q,
people do
Q1
that.
this year, so probably in the next 2 months we'll have it finished. It's something we've been working on for a little
Okay.
bit because we have had that expressed amount of interest, and it does fit in with our vision of having it simple, having something complexly prepared in a very simple manner. So you can have like a standing order that sends us £50 a month, right?
Right.
And then as soon as the deposit hits, you get your email, you log in, you buy. So that's a very simplistic bit. But there is going to be an engine that will buy it on a specific day, the specific amount
Because
that
that's how
all
I
is
got
going to.
in. Dollar cost average was the way that
Yeah,
really spoke to
and
me.
there's an article I posted on LinkedIn a couple of months ago. I think it might have been end of November, where someone that was dollar cost averaging in like $100 over the past 2 years, with all the highs, the lows, everything, they were like 49% up on their initial investment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just by being in the market, not watching the market. And I think that's where a big differentiation of learning comes in, is that you can paper trade all you like, and you can play the demo account, all that kind of stuff, but until you actually put your first pound in, or your first £10 in, or whatever it is, you are not going to take the opportunity seriously. And the opportunity on a investment point of view is whatever you're willing to risk, that you can sleep at night. I think that's very healthy. You don't lose more than you can afford, etc. But I think the more that you look at the opportunities are out there for not just investing, but collaborating with people, and and starting businesses and working on tech, and go to a hackathon and just talk to people,
Right.
go to a meetup and just talk to people. I mean, my entire world has changed from being in this network of people, and it's still very small. 0.5% of the world's global population, it's tiny. It's smaller than a couple of cities in America.
Yeah, I
But I
was to say
mean,
this is like a college right now with the amount of people
yeah,
that we have involved in our community. It's like
yeah.
a giant
So
college decentralized.
it is, yeah. So it's quite good that you can, even if it is highly tribal, you can still go and have an extremely intelligent
Yep.
conversation with anyone that I've found in this network so far. The London network is growing. I don't think it's big enough for the size of London, but there's always something to learn. There's always something to talk about, even if it's current news, even if it's about a new coin that's out or a pump and dump or I'm always learning something, and I
Hmm.
feel like, sometimes I feel like the idiot in the group, which means like, well, this is a really, really good group to hang out with.
They're my
Um,
favorite groups.
yeah,
Usually
um,
found at conferences or meetups.
yeah, meetups, and the hackathon stuff. We're part of a 3-month hackathon at the moment, at WeWork, in Waterloo. So if you ever see them on there, make sure you come down. We hang out with the MakerDAO stuff, MakerDAO and Swissport guys quite a lot. And it's always a good show. It's always a good time. There's always a bit of learning, and it's just fun. Why wouldn't you want to do something that's fun where you're learning at the same time? So we're super, super bullish. We wouldn't be doing this if we weren't. I wouldn't be devoting, what I take extremely seriously as part of my life's work, is to build something that's super legitimate, super, super professional, that literally has our names on it. While we're still a smaller exchange, we still have our tech is exactly the same, if not better, because we can develop faster than some of the bigger exchanges. We have some of the best banking accounts that you can get in the UK, with no restrictions, and I say restrictions, no limits on kind of what we can do. So we kind of almost have an edge on a lot of our competitors, is that we don't have these big huge funds or anything behind us, demanding that we onboard 1 million people this year. That would be great to have, don't get me wrong, but we've gone our entire history of our company so far completely on organic growth, by taking care of our community and by adding value at every single step of the way. And some of our clients are the most loyal people, that will give us really good, genuine feedback that help us improve our product. So they're kind of like our own little internal marketing team, and they get really good, discounts on fees. We're always holding events. We're always adding value and doing, some live events and content, etc. So it's like win-win with your clients that are also your mates.
Well, hey, if CoinPass, and these are just some of the conferences I've been to for crypto.
Wow!
Uh,
Holy,
yeah, I've
that's
been to
amazing.
over 200 events, and if you ever end up doing one, I've never been to the UK, man. So just let me
Oh,
know,
we'll have to,
and
we'll
I'll
have
put
to,
it on
we'll
the
have to hit you up.
calendar. Is there
Yeah,
any
yeah, for sure.
conferences or anything that you're aware of that are like major that are coming up?
Yeah, so we have, there's usually one of the blockchain summits that come up every now and then. I mean, they mix them in with cybersecurity and AI a fair bit, because they're not as big as, say, like Malta or Consensus, etc. We
Right.
do have a couple of big ones throughout the year, like London specific ones. Really good friend of mine. Shout out to James Bowater from Crypto AM. He's a journalist that writes for one of the major newspapers here in London, and he runs the London Blockchain Forum, and they have a couple of major events every other year. Sorry, every other year, every other month. It was just December, wasn't it? And some of the people I met in that room are probably some of the most influential people in the space in the UK, and in London as well. So they're not this big 5,000 people exhibition extravaganza. They're like large, really intimate networking events where you will meet, the CEO of exchanges, you will meet, the head of some of the funds, you will meet some of the smartest developers you'll ever meet. And
See,
it's
that's
in
some
this,
of my favorite events to go to, man. The
yeah, and you'll
intimate
meet them in
ones.
this. It's almost like a compression chamber of talent, and knowledge, and money. And it's a really good place to be. And it's not like it's got an insane, entry fee either, but it is always first in, best dressed. So you got to be quick.
Yeah, I'm pretty well known for getting into events without having a ticket.
There
So
you go. We'll send you a hoodie. You could be with the CoinPass crew.
you're an engineer. I'm a social engineer.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Well, hey man, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast and talk, Jeff. I mean, I appreciate it. Big shout out to coinpass.com, guys. If you're in the UK, go ahead and check them out. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I open the conversation to the audience now. And hey, as I like to wrap up with every guest, is there anything you wanted to mention, anything you wanted to talk about, or is there anything you wanted to ask me before we wrap things up?
Yeah, when you come to the UK, bro, we've got some really cool stuff happening over here. We've obviously got really good conferences. There's a couple of breweries over here that are crypto friendly as well. A couple of clients of ours, which are
how
really good fun.
how cannabis friendly is the UK?
Zero.
That affects the odds of my visitation greatly.
You have to stop. You have to stop off past Amsterdam on your way out. Then
Yeah, I could take a train from Amsterdam right over to London. That's right.
no, a flight, a train. That'll take you a long time. You get a flight. It's about 40 minutes.
Train might be safer with my luggage.
Maybe. There you go. But anyway,
I kid, TSA. I'm kidding.
But no, it's been really good to have us on. Thank you very much for inviting us and allow us to connect. It's been really cool to be exposed to your network, obviously, which is invaluable for us. We have a lot of friends over in the US, even though we're not doing business in the US just yet. We will hopefully be in the future. And let's hope 2020 is a year of heavy bags and all-time highs.
Yeah, man, we're at the age of mass awareness. Quit rushing the mass adoption thing. We're not ready for it yet. But we are ready for mass awareness. We got the mass attention. Let's keep that going. And I have one question, and then I promise I'll let you go. Big Crypto Dave in the chat said to ask him if he has met the guys who do the Crypto Weekly podcast.
I haven't. I've listened to it, but I haven't met them. No. So if you, Big Crypto Dave, you have an intro for them, I'd love to chat to them. Always.
Yeah, Crypto Dave, hook it up, bro. I know you can do it. Much appreciated. All right, Jeff, we're out of here, bro. Again, everybody, big shout out to CoinPass.com. Check them out and have a day.
Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org. Your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like SOME.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices, bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees, better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out to the sponsors of the podcast, MonarchToken.io, the complete crypto solution. Monarch Wallet is now available for Android, iOS, and desktop devices today. Do you want to learn how to mine crypto? Well, all you have to do is visit cryptomining.tools for profitable crypto mining information today. The Divi Project, that is diviproject.org. Your one-click solution for staking and masternodes. Earn cryptocurrency using social media platforms like SOME.social, SOMEE.social, New Era Social Media. Get paid to write reviews, like reviews, comment on reviews. Visit bravocoin.com and get paid to review. Available for Android and iOS devices, bravocoin.com. CoinFlip, the world's best Bitcoin ATM. Better service, better fees, better visit coinflip.tech today. Shout out